Hi all, welcome to another Google Hangout. Today we have our guest Darryl Thomas. Welcome, Darryl.
Buenas tardes.
So we're going to be discussing affordable health care shuts down Washington. So we're going to be going through the topics that are hot in the news in America today. Darryl, what can you tell us about the situation with the whole Obamacare? What is it
Oh
all
my
about?
gosh. Let's talk about Obamacare a little bit, like how it evolved and how we got to the point where we are today. So, let's get one thing clear. Obamacare is the name that the GOP has given the Affordable Care Act. They use Obamacare to scare everybody into thinking this is like some what do you call it, the socialism on the march, in America kind of thing. And Obama's is the illegally elected president from Kenya who's really a Muslim in secret. But basically, let's not call it Obamacare. That's GOP branding. It's a propaganda name. But basically, it is the Affordable Care Act, which is the fulfillment of Obama's campaign promise to have affordable health care. So the Affordable Health Care Act, which is very complicated and beyond belief, but it exists as a control to the spiraling healthcare costs that we see. Now, an interesting thing about the Affordable Care Act, it's actually based on the principles that were laid out by the conservative party, the conservative wing of the GOP, which are the Republicans, back in the 1980s. I believe during Clinton administration. So, like I said, it didn't get passed, obviously, but Mitt Romney used the exact same formulation in his healthcare system when he was governor of Massachusetts. And so what Obama did in 2008 was run on healthcare reform as one of his issues. Healthcare reform, because healthcare costs are going crazy,
Right.
and they have. So Obama gets elected. The Democrats control both wings of Congress, the House and the Senate. They get Obamacare. I said it. The Affordable Care Act passed, and then 2 years later, I don't know what it was doing between then and the 2 years later. I guess it's bouncing around um, somewhere in D.C. But then the Republicans get control back of the House, and now they're insisting on not passing it because now they say the American people don't want Obamacare.
And they're creating this huge campaign, even using like propaganda tactics to go with young people and telling them, no, Obamacare is going to essentially get away with your money and you're going to be just gotten through more debts and so forth. So what is the actual feud that's going on? Because it doesn't make sense that if you're talking about an affordable health care act and you have the Republicans opposing it and creating all of this media frenzy, what is this all about
Well,
in American
essentially, they're
politics?
opposing their own program. They're trolling their own message board, basically. Um, it's basically a big screw you, Obama. We're not going to let you have anything because they see it as one of Obama's triumphs. And they're trying to position themselves for the next election. They're actually trying to position themselves even before the next presidential election. There's a midterm election in the next year, and all these characters who are filibustering and coming out against Obamacare are trying to they're all up for re-election next year. So they're trying to oh yeah, I stood up against Obamacare and said blah blah blah, save the country, da da da. And basically, it is there to give them an issue to run on. So you have Ted Cruz, who is our senator here in Texas. He is going to run for president looks like, and he needs something to get his name out there. So he goes on a 21-hour filibuster in the Senate, trying to stop Obamacare from being voted on in the Senate. 21 hours. And I'll ask you, how many hours did Ted Cruz spend coming with a solution or an alternative to the Affordable Care Act? 0. He had no solution. There is no solution. There is no alternative. What you have are vested interests who don't want to see it implemented, namely by the healthcare system in America. And you have basically this rivalry, the supposed GOP versus Democratic rivalry that can't come to a solution, because no solution exists, because both of these wings of the government are supported and support the same economic principles that have given us the widest income gap in history. It has given us the demolition of the middle class. And that's the neoliberal policies that was started under Reagan with his Reaganomics thing that says government has to be, the free markets has to be the organizing principle for all aspects of life, whether it's personal, political, economic, or social. Oh, military, the military and the media, everything.
So we're essentially witnessing what is the exposure of this power game, the bipartisan situation in the U.S. that is absolutely neglecting the actual care for the people, and politics has been propaganda, not the product, as well, selling himself. So the benefit of the people within this oath, if there is any. And what is going on with the people? Because as we were discussing off air, people are uneducated, people are careless, they are probably not even caring about what's going on in this potential governmental shutdown. So what's going on?
No, they don't know what's going on, what would happen, the fallout. They don't know what's in Obama. I keep saying it, Obamacare. See how they've entered into my brain? Damn branding. The media. I don't even have a television. I'd like Obamacare.
Well,
the Affordable Care.
Well, there you go. That's the power of the media. I also got it from what I read.
Oh, I can't. And I'm like thinking about this stuff like, oh, wow, what a shame that ordinary Americans have no idea what the media is doing to their brains. And then so I'm like, oh, Obamacare. All right. Yeah, it's a problem. Like I said in other hangouts, the issue has been going on for decades. The program to dumb down Americans and get them to be complacent and lazy and intellectually anti-intellectual and avoid any type of critical thinking or even developing capacity for critical thinking. That's all been accomplished. So we have a populace who can scarcely be bothered. They'd rather find out what's going to happen on the last Breaking Bad episode or getting into, oh, I got to go down to GameStop and get the latest Grand Theft Auto. They don't give a crap about the Affordable Care Act. They don't know what's in it. They don't know what will happen if the government breaks down. It's just all background noise. And that's part of the media's job, is to make sure the background noise stays in the background and make sure that we don't start asking questions, questioning authority, and demanding accountability, because that means we're not running our machines like we're supposed to and being docile and unquestioning agents of the free market. But
there's also another point, accountability. That isn't part of our I mean, in America, your education system, not everywhere else in the world. Like, we already know that there's this political elite that will take care of the points. Yes, they might get feuds between each other. They run power games and competition and popularity games that they call politics. But where is our understanding of, yes, we are and should be the ones that should be running, or the actual government, but there's no democracy, as we were discussing as well. So what is the actual suggestion that we have in relation to, for example, solutions? Because right now we are witnessing that, yes, a human being is more, we are more interested in this personal interest and who cares about who runs the world. But the moment that people are, for example, going to be witnessing this huge cutting down on food stamps, that's when the cookie will crumble, essentially. So what do you see in this situation?
Well, I mean, I'll take a look at that example. So you have the prospect, and it hasn't been signed into law. It's something I think Obama has to sign in law for it to actually take place. But when you realize that who is affected by this cut in food stamps, most people think it's the minorities or those dirty minorities or illegal aliens or whatever. They don't need help because they're here, or they're criminals, and they shouldn't be helped. They should, help themselves. They don't realize that the biggest recipients of food stamps are single white females with families in the South, states that are controlled by the conservatives, by the Republicans. And they want to keep it that way, and one way to keep it that way is make sure these ignorant, unthinking, uncritical, undernourished, underfed, undereducated people remain that way, so they can stay in politics in their offices for 30 years. You've got guys that have been in office for 30 years. That's like being like a king or a prince or a baron. You just and like I said, they live completely different lives. They get free health care. They rake in 6 figures on top of being millionaires. And so what I said is, what we need to do is find people who are educated, find people who know what's going on, network with them, get involved with the networking into positions of positions of power or influence, and getting people to work with us who feel the same way. The average person is not going to help. They can't. They don't know what to do. They're not even aware of a problem except on a really, really sort of unconscious level. So basically, we have to become better at generating income, generating wealth, and then aligning ourselves with people already in those spots that can actually make a difference. Unfortunately, talking to people, if you talk to your neighbor, they're just going to look at you like, you're going to watch Breaking Bad tonight. They're not going to be able to relate to you. Have you ever had that conversation with someone talking about this or a similar subject?
They just remain quiet.
Why do you shave your head? I mean, they will pick out something that's totally like
curbing the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, for example, something that I heard from Chris Hedges was saying, in relation to, let's say, movements that are going on in America, Occupy Wall Street, that they should actually propose, what's ongoing, like double the minimum wage, or at least getting it to $10 an hour, that would make, Occupy Wall Street more consolidated. So, yeah, we have to essentially propose clear ways, for example, as a living income guaranteed, as a proposal to generate this awareness that you are going to be affected if you don't actually become politically aware of what you can do, because this is empowerment of the people through, for example, pointing out things like, yes, make your entertainment the thing that runs your life instead of caring about who's running your interests. I mean, that is the kind of education that we are also doing with these hangouts, proposing what can we do and what is the actual brainwashing, the actual misleading of the people's attention in relation to what actually matters.
Yeah, and it's a problem because the goals, it's a long-term program that took decades to accomplish, but it's been accomplished. So Occupy Wall Street came and went. The Arab Spring came and went. Nothing essentially was changed. And the reason why that happened is because it was background noise, even though it came to the front of the media.
Right.
If it comes in front of the media, it is a time where it'll recede back into the background. All right.
Yeah, it's lost its momentum right now.
It lost its momentum. And number one, you still have enough people in this country that are doing okay. So when they see Occupy Wall Street, they just see a bunch of dirty hippies or malcontents or people who can't make it. And it's
without a political proposal, which is the problem.
Yeah, there's no political proposal. To them, it looked like what are these white kids doing complaining about the system? They need to get a job. You know, I hate to say it like that, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
These white kids need to get a job and stop, living on their parents' couches and stuff. And nobody felt bad, or not enough people felt bad or listened to what they had to say or took it seriously, because the people who should be on their side are doing okay. They're like at their work, they're in their cubicle, sitting in their office, maybe seeing it online while they're filling out paperwork, and they Occupy Wall Street, that's too bad. I wonder what's this lolcat thing is going on here. Let me take a look at that. It's just too much of background information. And so we have a problem with the media. We have a problem with the anti-intellectualism that's firmly embedded itself in American consciousness. And
just like Orwell said, that intellectuals are allowed because there is no real intellect. So that is the problem in relation to education.
It's scary to think Orwell called it all back in 1949. How the politicians were able to make everlasting war a place where everybody accepts it, where double talk is accepted as, common everyday language, where morals have been confused and distorted and convoluted to a point where they're meaningless. Televisions that watch you. I mean, he's called an eternal surveillance. It's scary. He called it all. I don't know if the government said, "Hey, we should do this," or he might have been a mole. I don't know, but it's scary. It just tells me that this program was in effect for a long, long time. It's going to take some time to get out of it.
We have a question from Kim. Do you think, Darryl, that something like the NHS in the UK would be a solution to the problem short term? That's not to say that it is an ultimate solution, but at least that there is a basic level of care at the moment.
Is that the healthcare system in Europe she's talking about?
National health. Is that it, Kim?
If she's asking if there can be a healthcare system I don't know, like an independent healthcare system or a governmental healthcare system.
She's not replying. I'm going to say one comment from Joku. He's saying one of the important layers of this fiasco that goes over the heads of many people is that even if Obamacare passes, it will not in any way make a dent in the greater problem of our debt addiction, and overall healthcare will remain out of reach for many Americans, not because it was expensive, but because there are no jobs. And most employers will reduce their workforce and billable hours to avoid having to comply. So yes, in a sense, that is the way that is going at the moment. No one is looking at the greater picture where there is no democracy, where the government is not caring after the best interest of the people. We're just looking at a show of this competition game, these tantrums being thrown by politicians that don't genuinely care about the well-being of people.
You said it very, very well right there, and that's the problem. Everything in the media gets reduced into a entertainment or an infomercial. It becomes a product to be consumed. So, oh my gosh, it makes me crazy when I think about it sometimes. I mean, healthcare, universal healthcare, like they have. I don't know why some countries can get it done.
And Kim says it's National Health Service, yes.
National Health Service. I don't know why some countries can get it done. Apparently they have a health care system in Australia that the government funds. And all the stories out of Australia is that it's actually reduced health care costs. It hasn't made it more expensive for the payers or for the government. It's actually reduced healthcare costs. So basically, what we're talking about is reducing in America why it won't succeed. It's because it will reduce healthcare profits for the corporations who need to make.
Who are the ones that run the actual government?
Yeah. So basically, I don't know why Canada can get around that issue, and in Australia. And where it's been implemented, they can get around it. Basically, it won't happen here as long as corporations are allowed to fund the politicians in this country. Until that goes away, we're just going to have to keep. The system won't change in any fundamental way. So we have a huge problem.
Kim is saying, whereby in the UK a portion of the tax goes to the government for basic healthcare service.
Well, I mean, that's socialism. So Americans have been indoctrinated to consider socialism with caring for your fellow citizen as an evil communist plan to destroy America through caring about other people.
Exactly. So that is precisely the whole problem. We are looking at the educational conditioning of almost Orwellian talk, wherein communism is seen as evil. Therefore, allow your politicians to run down the business for you, as apparently caring, and apparently healthcare systems being debatable, which they aren't, in fact. So this is just to place this whole topic on the table. We could say a lot more, but we don't have more time. So, Darryl, what would you like to say for concluding this topic?
Well, I would just say in conclusion, as much as we can come to one, people who are interested in changing the system, the system's not going to come to you and ask you to change it. You have to go to the system, and it's what we've heard before, you have to become part of the system in order to change it. So on any level, from the grassroots level to social networking to get away from the monitor and the laptop and the tablet, and go and physically get yourself involved with people who can find people who think like you do, who are maybe in a higher position or a better position to connect you with others who think in the same way. They are out there, and there are not going to be many of them. But I've seen in the past, you somehow gravitate towards people who think along the same lines as you do. But you're not going to do it solely through Facebook or solely through LinkedIn. You're going to have to physically move yourself and put yourself in positions where you can meet belly to belly with people who share your ideas and forge alliances and become more effective that way in presenting the point, because that's the only way we're going to be able to change. It's going to be slow, it's going to be arduous, but we can't quit or give up. And we've seen limited success of people and groups actually doing that, like the Tea Party. They started off as a very small minority. They still are a minority, but they've got a lot of clout because, number one, they've got money, and number two, they forged the right alliances with key people at the right time. So now their point of view is being presented through the GOP, whether they like it or not. But that's how you get influence in this country.
So accountability, education, self-responsibility, actually getting out there and enabling more to realize how this actually affects them too. So with this we will close. We will remain talking about these topics in the future. Thanks a lot, Darryl, for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Marlen.
See you guys
We'll see you next
week.
time.
Bye.